I sat in the corner of Attorney Morrison's office while my mother gestured expansively at the lake house photographs she'd brought. The smell of leather and old law books filled the room. Dad had his reading glasses on, reviewing trust documents with the confidence of someone who believed every word written there. "This property has been in our family for generations," Mom explained, which was interesting since I'd purchased it myself 8 years ago with money from my first consulting contract. "We want to ensure it stays that way." Attorney Morrison, a man in his late 50s with careful eyes, nodded slowly. He glanced at me. "And you are?" "Their daughter," I said quietly. "Emma. She'll benefit from the trust eventually," Dad added, waving his hand dismissively. "Once she learns some responsibility." I pulled my title insurance policy from my bag and slid it across the mahogany desk. The thick document landed with a soft thud against Morrison's coffee cup. He picked it up and I watched his expression shift as he read the first page. "Mrs. Chin," he said slowly, "this policy lists Emma Chin as the sole owner. Purchase date, April 2016. There's no mention of family ownership or prior transfers." The room went quiet except for the soft tick of the grandfather clock behind Morrison's desk. Mom's face lost color. Dad's jaw tightened, that little tell when he was trying not to show panic. "That's obviously a mistake," Mom said, recovering quickly. "The property has always been ours. Emma just helps with some paperwork." I'd heard this narrative my entire adult life. Every achievement reframed. Every success recontextualized as luck, help, or temporary responsibility for something that truly belonged to them. Morrison's fingers drummed once on his desk. "I'll need to verify ownership through county records before proceeding. This is standard due diligence for any trust involving real property." "Of course," I said. Dad shot me a look that would have silenced me 10 years ago. Now it just made me tired. The call came 3 days later. I was reviewing client proposals when my phone showed Morrison's office number. "Miss Chin, I've completed the title search." His voice was professional but carried an edge I hadn't heard before. "The property at 4847 Lakeshore Drive has been in your sole ownership since 2016. There are no liens, no co-owners, no family claims of any kind. Your parents have no legal interest in this property." "I know," I said simply. "Did you authorize them to place it in trust?" "No." There was a pause. "I see. I've informed your parents that I cannot proceed with creating a trust for property they don't own. I've also recommended they consult separate counsel regarding certain disclosures they made during our initial meeting." I understood what he wasn't saying directly. They'd claimed ownership. They'd signed documents attesting to that ownership. They'd done this in front of an attorney, creating a lovely paper trail of fraud. "What did they say?" I asked. Your mother hung up. Your father asked if there was any way to fix this misunderstanding. Morrison's tone suggested what he thought of that characterization. I declined to discuss it further. The screaming started that evening. My phone lit up with 17 calls from Mom, 12 from Dad, and a stream of text from my brother Kyle. "What did you do? They're losing it. Call them back. This is family." I didn't call back. Instead, I pulled out what I privately called the archive. A leather accordion folder, heavy with documents I'd collected over 8 years. Every dismissal. Every moment they'd rewritten my achievements into their narrative. The lake house purchase, April 2016. I'd earned $127,000 from a consulting contract. 6 months of 18-hour days building a market analysis system for a pharmaceutical company. The lake house was listed at $340,000, but I'd found it before it hit the main market. A retired couple wanted a quick sale. I offered $315,000 cash, closed in 3 weeks. I remembered calling Mom to share the news. "That's nice, honey," she'd said. "But property ownership is complicated for single women. You should have your father manage it." I'd declined. The property went into my name alone. I had the deed framed. At that year's Christmas dinner, Dad had announced, "We've acquired a beautiful lake house. Emma's been helping us with some of the paperwork." I'd said nothing. I thought if I proved successful enough, they'd eventually see me as I actually was. That was the gambler's fallacy applied to family dynamics. I kept feeding the slot machine of their approval, convinced the jackpot of genuine recognition was mathematically inevitable. But their narrative was more important than my reality. It always had been. The ghost ledger. I opened my laptop and created a new spreadsheet. Title: The Ghost Ledger, Non-Financial Costs. Entry 1, June 2016. Dad's 60th birthday. I arrived with photos of the lake house renovation I'd personally funded, $43,000 in updates. Dad showed guests around while I held drinks. Our new lake retreat, he said 14 times. Cost: being erased from my own achievement. Never recoverable. Entry 2, September 2017. Mom's Garden Club wanted to tour the Chin family estate. I spent 2 days cleaning and preparing my property for their event. Mom introduced me as the caretaker who helps maintain it. Cost: self-worth, dignity. The assumption I'd ever challenge her publicly. Entry 3, Thanksgiving 2018. Kyle announced his new apartment. Family celebrated for 40 minutes. I mentioned installing solar panels at the lake house. $31,000 investment reducing carbon footprint by 73%. Mom said, "That's nice," and changed the subject. Cost: 30 seconds of attention versus Kyle's 40 minutes. The math of who mattered. Entry 4, April 2020. Pandemic lockdown. Family needed a place to shelter. They stayed at my lake house for 4 months. I paid utilities, maintenance, property taxes. When they left, Dad said, "Good to know the family property is well maintained." Cost: $8,400 in expenses. Zero acknowledgement. Zero gratitude. The ledger grew to 47 entries. Line items of emotional theft that had no statute of limitations. Morrison called again a week later. "Your parents have retained an attorney. Gerald Blackwood. He's known for aggressive property litigation." He paused. "I wanted to give you advance warning. They're planning to file a claim asserting beneficial ownership through long-term family use and improvement contributions." "They contributed nothing," I said flatly. "I have receipts for every repair, every tax payment, every utility bill for 8 years." "Good. Keep everything organized." Blackwood will argue equitable claims, implied agreements, family understanding. The fact that you never corrected their public statements about ownership could be problematic. "I see. One more thing," Morrison said. "I'm required to report potential fraud to the state bar when it occurs in my presence. I've filed that report regarding the false representations made during our initial consultation." I thanked him and hung up. Then I called my own attorney. Janet Park had handled my business contracts for 6 years. She listened to the full story without interruption. "How much documentation do you have?" she asked. "Everything. Purchase records, mortgage documents, tax payments, insurance policies, renovation receipts, utility bills. Every single transaction in my name alone." "Good. We'll need certified copies of all property records. The county assessor should have the complete chain of title. Also, I want to depose your parents about every conversation where they claimed ownership. Every dinner party, every family gathering. We'll document the pattern." "They're my parents," I said quietly. "They're attempting to steal property worth approximately $500,000, Janet replied. "They committed fraud in front of an attorney. This isn't a family disagreement, Emma. This is a crime." The procedural machinery moved forward with the steady precision of a system designed to find truth. Step 1. Evidence collection. Week 1. I organized 8 years of documentation into chronological order. Every deed, every canceled check, every tax return listing the property. Digital backups stored in 3 separate locations. Total pages: 847. Step 2. Professional consultation. Week 2. Janet retained a forensic accountant and a handwriting expert. We needed to be ready for whatever Blackwood filed. Step 3. The counterclaim. Week 3. When my parents filed their lawsuit claiming beneficial ownership, Janet responded with a counterclaim: fraud, defamation, intentional interference with property rights, and a request for attorney's fees. We attached 184 pages of exhibits. Step 4. Discovery. Weeks 4 to 8. Blackwood demanded documentation. We provided everything, the complete trail of sole ownership so clear it read like a legal textbook example. Then we demanded theirs. My parents produced 12 family photographs showing them at the lake house, 3 witness statements from relatives claiming they'd heard my parents call it our property, and a handwritten note allegedly from me granting them ownership rights. I'd never written that note. Step 5. Handwriting Analysis, Week 9. The forensic document examiner compared the note to my actual writing samples. Her report was precise. The questioned document shows 23 points of divergence from the known exemplars. Conclusion: the signature was not written by Emma Chin. Confidence level: 99.4%. The ink analysis was even more damning. The note was dated 2017, but the ink formulation hadn't been commercially available until 2019. Step 6. The settlement offer, Week 10. Blackwood called Janet. My parents would drop all claims if I agreed not to pursue criminal charges. No, I said. Janet conveyed my response. The case moved toward trial. Step 7. The motion hearing, Week 12. Judge Patricia Thornton reviewed both sides' evidence in chambers before trial. I sat in the courtroom waiting, watching my parents whisper urgently with Blackwood. When Thornton emerged, her expression was carved from granite. I've reviewed all submitted materials. The plaintiff's evidence of ownership is non-existent. The defendant's documentation is comprehensive and unchallenged. Furthermore, the handwriting analysis reveals attempted fraud. She looked directly at my parents. Plaintiff's claims are dismissed with prejudice. I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for potential criminal prosecution. Court adjourned. The gavel struck once. Dad's face went pale. Mom grabbed Blackwood's sleeve, but he was already closing his briefcase. I can't represent you in criminal proceedings, he said quietly. You'll need separate counsel. Step 8. Immediate consequences. Security escorted my parents from the courthouse. I walked out the front entrance alone. Step 9. Criminal investigation, Week 13. The DA's office opened a formal investigation into fraud, forgery, and perjury. My parents hired a criminal defense attorney. Their retainer, $50,000. Step 10. The follow-through, Week 16. My parents accepted a plea agreement. No jail time in exchange for guilty pleas to attempted fraud, 3 years probation, $15,000 in restitution to cover my attorney's fees, and a permanent restraining order prohibiting contact. Their attorney's final bill, $127,000. The amount I'd earned to buy the lake house in the first place. 6 months later, I stood on the deck of the lake house watching sunrise paint the water gold. The smell of pine and clean morning air. The soft lap of waves against the dock. The temperature cool enough to see my breath. I'd added 2 more properties to my portfolio. A downtown condo and a small commercial building. 9 properties total now, all in my name alone. Kyle sent one email asking if I'd reconsider the restraining order for Mom's birthday. I didn't respond. There is a particular kind of freedom that comes from watching people experience the consequences they spent years trying to dodge. Not rage. Not satisfaction. Just the quiet relief of a closed account. The lake house still stands at 4847 Lakeshore Drive. The deed still has my name alone. The trust my parents tried to create never existed. From the property I fought to protect, my future begins now.